The Reaper's Clock. In the withering town of Black Hollow, where fog clung to the chimneys like memories that refused to die, stood an ancient clock tower at the heart of the square. The villagers called it the Dead Clock, for it hadn't moved a minute past midnight in over 100 years. Children were warned never to touch its rusted brass hands, and the elderly crossed themselves as they passed it, muttering old prayers that trembled on their breath. They said the clock once kept the time of death. Long ago, a watchmaker named Elias Grin dwelled within that tower, building clocks of uncanny precision. His work was renowned, but he was not beloved. His gaze was too quiet, too calculating, like a man who had heard time speak and dared to answer. People whispered that he could make a clock that counted down to your final breath, that he had bartered something precious for his skill. Then, one storm-split night, the bell tolled 13 times, and Elias vanished. That was the night the clock stopped. No one had gone inside since. Doors sealed themselves shut, and those who tried to force them heard whispers rising from within, the dry click of gears grinding in the silence. The mayor eventually declared it cursed and left it to rot. But time, as it always does, circles back. A century later, in the flickering candlelight of a funeral home down the road, a young mortician named Ada Vellum lived and worked alone. She had the sort of face that belonged in another age, sharp, pale, and unreadable. Her voice was a velvet hush, her eyes like black marbles. She had come to Black Hollow to escape a past too heavy to carry, and in the quiet company of the dead, she found a peace the living never offered. But the dead had begun whispering. Not out loud, no, but in dreams. Night after night she saw the dead clock tick, a second here, a second there, and then one dusk she heard the bell. Not in her sleep, but while she was embalming a man who'd hanged himself in the forest. Gong. It came low and slow, as if dragged through centuries of dust, and her scalpel slipped. Blood, a drop of it despite the body being drained, beaded on her finger. Gong. The second chime vibrated through the walls. Ada stood frozen, the dead man's mouth hanging open behind her like a silent warning. It rang a third time before it stopped. She cleaned the wound, bandaged her hand, and went to the tower. The clock loomed above her like a watching giant, its face dim beneath a shroud of fog. The door was open. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil, rust, and something older, like parchment turned to dust. Winding staircases led up into the dark, but the room at the base was what caught her eye. It was a workshop, frozen in time. Dozens of pocket watches lined the walls, each engraved with a name, and beside them, dates. Not birth, not marriage, death. She read one aloud. Miriam Vance, May 12, 1922. The watch beneath the plaque ticked twice, then fell still. She reached for another, but a voice stopped her. "Don't touch what you can't return." She turned. There, in the center of the room, stood a man. Tall, thin, impossibly still, his coat black as the space between stars. His face was concealed beneath a hood, but where his eyes should be, two pale embers glowed. In one hand, he held a scythe, not gleaming and theatrical like stories claimed, but battered and worn, the blade etched with names like scars. "You're the Reaper," Ada said. He inclined his head. She didn't run. "Why did the clock toll?" "Because your time has come." She frowned. "I'm not dead." "Yet," he said. Ada looked around the room. This place was Elias Grin's, the watchmaker. You took him. "I offered him a bargain," said the Reaper. "He wished to delay his end. I gave him time, tools to build it, watches to measure it, knowledge to curse himself. And now? Now you stand where he fell. His hour came, so must yours." "But why me?" The Reaper stepped forward. He produced a watch from his coat, turning it in his bony fingers. Her name glimmered on the surface. Ada Vellum. Midnight. Tonight. She reached for the watch, but he pulled it back. "No one takes what death holds unless they offer something greater in return." What did Elias offer? A soul, not his own. Her stomach turned. Whose? The Reaper turned, gesturing to the tower above. "Climb, learn, choose." Up and up she went, past gears the size of carriages, past wheels that ticked in dead silence, their teeth caked in red rust. Along the way she saw portraits, oil paintings of the same man growing older. Elias, his eyes hollowing, his hands blackening. At the top was a room filled with lightless mirrors. Each showed a different version of her. Ada as a child crying beside a hospital bed. Ada holding a scalpel with blood on her sleeve. Ada walking away from a burning building. "You made choices," came the Reaper's voice behind her. "But never sacrifice." "You want me to give you a soul?" "One, in place of yours." "Whose?" "Anyone. A soul freely taken, willingly offered." She shook her head. "You're telling me to murder." "No," he said. "I'm telling you to choose. That's the curse of time. It always demands a price." She left the tower and wandered through Black Hollow, watching its people. The widow who fed stray cats in the alley, the drunk who shouted at shadows, the boy who stole apples from the grocer and gave them to his starving sister. Any one of them could be traded. None of them deserved it, but neither, she thought, did she. Back in her funeral home, she sat beside the latest corpse, the man from the forest. He'd left a note, crumpled in his fist. She hadn't read it before. Now she did. "Tell Ada I'm sorry." The signature made her throat close. Jonathan Vellum, her brother. The past rushed back. A fire, a failed rescue, a life of blame. They had been torn apart by tragedy and silence. She had embalmed her own brother without knowing, and now she understood. His soul hadn't moved on. The Reaper had waited for this moment. "Take mine," she whispered. "Let him go." The Reaper emerged from the shadows, watch ticking in hand. "That was always the choice." The hands struck midnight. The watch cracked. The Reaper bowed once, then vanished. The townspeople say the dead clock began to move that night. Only backward. Each tick counts in reverse, as if undoing all the seconds lost to grief. No one has seen Ada Vellum since, but they say if you climb the tower and whisper your regrets, you might find a watch with your name on it. And if it's still ticking, you still have time. But beware, the Reaper always listens, and he always collects.